much food for thought. We're now going to move on to motions. Motion 1, the economy in the name of the National Executive Council. Call on Jack O'Connor to move motion 1 on behalf of the National Executive Council.
President, delegates, good morning. Jack O'Connor, SIP2, moving motion number 1 in the name of the Executive Council. You might have noticed, delegates, that the Irish Times are currently running a series on precarious work. And in yesterday's article, it was entitled Precarious Work, Sections Where the Only Permanent Thing is Insecurity. And that article very helpfully included at the bottom a table which demonstrated that we are now the economy in the OECD that is second only to the United States of America in terms of the proportion of our workforce which are on what is statistically regarded as low pay. But there's only one thing that I might say that the article possibly, or the series possibly, understates the scale of the problem, because precarious work is no longer restricted to certain categories of people on the periphery of the labour force. We have to understand precarious work for what it is. It is an essential characteristic of the ultra-liberal model that is now being installed not only in Ireland, but all across Europe and indeed the world. A model in which the idea of security and a guarantee of employment and all the things we took for granted as a result of the New Deal becomes the exception rather than the rule, and precariousness becomes the rule. It is, of course, delegates, a product of the dictatorship of the market, which is now establishing itself in the aftermath of the greatest economic collapse since the Wall Street crash of 1929. And it is, as all dictatorships are, with the passage of time, accompanied by its own narrative. And in this case, it's a narrative which disguises misery by sugarcoating it as in terms of language like those which IBEC uses about perpetual opportunity and so on. As though human beings had overnight forfeited one of their most essential characteristics, the need for security for themselves and for their families. They haven't, as we all know, of course, delegates. But what has happened in this state of ours, and increasingly in the developed world, is that working people have lost the confidence to believe that they can win. And our task in this movement, given the legacy that we are the custodians of, is to restore that belief in working people that they can win, we can win, and the essential things that we hold dear should be the things that everyone has as a guarantee. Only the trade union movement in the industrial arena can fulfill this role, delegates. But I put it to you seriously and honestly that if we are serious about the vow, this vow that we are taking this morning, this vow that we will fight back, I put it to you that if we are serious about that, it is a task which will challenge us to our very core. In terms of how we respond, for example, to the challenge of productivity, which for far too long we have left to the other side. Productivity is far too important to leave to the other side, because if we do, they disguise it by reference to they develop it by reference to their criteria rather than the criteria upon which working people and society depend. And in terms as well of the way we conduct the battle on the ground itself, not just in terms of the way we link wages to the organising challenge, collective bargaining strategies to the organising agenda, but also, and this is the real challenge for us as traditional institutions of working people, the way in which we step up to the challenge of shifting millions of euro over the next few years to support working people in the precarious economy, to build their confidence not just in us as institutions, but in themselves as working men and women. And to do that in the knowledge that many, many thousands of them may never, ever join our institutions. We have to move from institutionalism that has afflicted our work to the task for which our movement was established, the task of organising working men and women so that they may have their fair share in the fruits of their labour. That task is more important now, comrades, than it has been for many, many years. And it is a task that is as doable as it always was if we have the courage to step up to the mark. I move the motion on behalf of the Executive Council, comrades.